What kind of man sends for a bride, makes her cross the whole country, and then replaces her before she even arrives? The question slammed through Josephine Ali's mind as the dust-coated stagecoach rattled to a stop outside the small Texas town of Redemption. The summer heat of 1875 pressed down on her bonnet, and her heart thudded with a mix of fear and fragile hope. She had spent her last pennies to come here. There was no going back. Josephine stepped down slowly, her navy traveling dress wrinkled from weeks of travel, her gloved hands gripping the small valise that held her entire life. 22 years old, no family left in Boston after her father's death, no job when the textile factory shut down. Answering Edwin Porter's mail-order bride advertisement had felt like her only chance at a future, but the smile she expected from her soon-to-be husband never came. Instead, a thin man in a worn suit hurried toward her, his eyes full of something close to panic. "You must be Miss Ali," he said. "I'm Frederick Toombs, Mr. Porter's associate. I'm afraid I have unfortunate news." Josephine's stomach tightened. "Where is Mr. Porter? He received my telegram." Toombs swallowed hard. "Mr. Porter has since married another, a local widow, with property." Married another. The word struck like a slap. "I traveled nearly 2,000 miles, Josephine whispered. "I spent everything I had." Yes, most regrettable," Toombs said, looking everywhere except her face. "But Mr. Porter has authorized me to fund your travel back east." "Return to what?" Her voice cracked, despite her effort to keep it steady. "I have no home left." Quote. Before Toombs could answer, a deep voice came from behind her. "Is everything all right here?" Josephine turned and froze. A tall cowboy stood a few feet away, broad-shouldered, dust on his riding clothes, boots worn from miles of hard Texas land. His hat shadowed half his face, but his eyes were clear blue like the summer sky. "This is a private matter," Toombs snapped. The cowboy ignored him, his gaze fixed on Josephine. "Ma'am, you look like you need help. Everything okay?" Quote. Josephine opened her mouth, but Toombs cut in quickly. "This lady came as a mail-order bride for Edwin Porter. Circumstances changed. We're arranging her return." "He married someone else," Josephine said quietly, humiliation burning her throat. The cowboy's jaw flexed. "Porter did that?" he said, voice low with disbelief. He removed his hat, revealing thick brown hair and a face roughened by sun and work. "Name's Wade Sullivan. I own the Broken Spur Ranch just outside town." Toombs cleared his throat. "If Miss Ali will follow me." "She's free to choose me, then." Silence fell hard. Even the horses seemed to stop moving. Josephine stared at Wade. "I beg your pardon?" Wade held her gaze steadily. "If Porter made promises he couldn't keep, then you're free to consider other offers. I'm needing a wife myself. Ranch work's heavy, and a home is empty without someone to share it with." "Mr. Sullivan," Josephine managed, "you don't even know me." "I know you had the courage to cross the country alone for a chance at a better life. That tells me plenty." Toombs sputtered. "This is highly irregular." "So is stranding a woman in a strange town," Wade said sharply. Then his voice softened as he looked at her again. "I'm not asking for an answer, just offering an option." He pointed down the dusty street toward a small boarding house. "You can stay at Mrs. Grayson's place tonight, on my account. Think things over." Josephine hesitated. She didn't trust easily, not anymore. But his offer was the only kindness she'd been shown in days. "I'll accept lodging for tonight," she said. "Nothing more for now." Wade nodded. "Fair enough." As they walked toward the boarding house, Josephine felt the watching eyes of half the town. Her future had shattered in minutes, but strangely, the crushing weight in her chest had eased. Maybe it was shock. Or maybe it was the steady presence of the cowboy walking beside her. Inside, Mrs. Grayson, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, welcomed Josephine into a clean, modest room. After Wade explained things gently, the older woman gave her a firm, comforting squeeze of the shoulder. "You rest now, dear. You've had a hard day." Later, Josephine found a small envelope Wade had left for her. Inside was a brief note in a neat hand. "Miss Ali, I understand you need time. I'll come by tomorrow at noon if you care to talk. No pressure, just conversation. Wade Sullivan. Below it was money, enough for several nights, lodging or a stage ticket out of town. She set the money aside. She would not accept charity, but the gesture touched her more than she expected. The next morning brought coffee, warm sunlight, and unexpected tension. A young woman swept into the boarding house, her dress far too fine for early morning. She smiled sharply at Josephine. "You must be the girl from Boston. I'm Miranda Porter," Edwin's wife. The room fell silent. Josephine sat straighter. "Congratulations on your marriage." "Oh, thank you," Miranda replied, false sweetness dripping. "Edwin only corresponded with you out of politeness. Nothing serious. I hope you understand." Josephine's jaw tightened. Then Miranda added lightly, "My household needs a new maid. Since you're already here—" Josephine stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. "I am not seeking employment in your home." Miranda arched a brow. "I hear Wade Sullivan offered you marriage. A bit impulsive of him, not exactly refined company for an Eastern lady." Josephine met her eyes coolly. "I find honesty refreshing." Miranda's smile tightened. "Well, if you change your mind about being a maid." When she left, Mrs. Grayson shook her head. "That girl thinks she's queen of redemption. Pay her no mind." Josephine didn't answer. Her heart still pounded, but not from fear, from anger, from pride, and from something else she didn't want to name yet. Near noon, she stepped onto the porch just as Wade rode up on a handsome chestnut horse. Sunlight caught his blue eyes as he dismounted. "Morning, Miss Ali," he said gently. "You look ready to talk." And for the first time since leaving Boston, she felt ready too. What kind of woman does the whole town whisper about before she even decides her future? Josephine Ali wondered that as she stepped down from the boarding house porch, watching Wade Sullivan tie his horse to the post as if he had all the time in the world to wait for her. Her heart beat fast, not from fear this time, but from something she didn't dare name yet. "Morning, Miss Ali," Wade said softly. "Ready to walk a bit?" Quote. She nodded, and together they moved along Redemption's dusty main street. People watched. They always did. But Wade didn't seem to notice or care. His stride was steady, confident, like he knew exactly who he was and what he wanted. "You met Mrs. Porter," Wade said quietly. Josephine let out a slow breath. "She offered me a job as her maid." Wade stopped walking. The anger that flashed in his blue eyes stunned her. "She did what?" Josephine shrugged. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me," Wade said firmly. "Miranda thinks she can walk over anyone. But you're not someone to be walked over." The words warmed her more than the Texas sun. They walked toward the edge of town, where open land stretched wide and free. When the noise of the street finally faded, Wade looked at her with a seriousness that made her pulse jump. "I want to explain myself," he said. "You don't need to," Josephine replied. He shook his head. "I do." They stopped beneath a tall oak tree, its branches giving them a little shade. "When I offered marriage yesterday, it wasn't just because Porter abandoned you." He paused, looking out across the fields. "I've been thinking of placing my own advertisement. I've built a good ranch, but a ranch isn't a home without someone to share it with." Josephine swallowed. "So I'm convenient." "No," Wade said, meeting her eyes. "You're available, and you're brave. That matters more to me than you know." She had no answer for that. "Would you show me your ranch?" she finally asked. "Before I decide anything, I need to see where I might live." Surprise flickered across his face, then a slow, genuine smile appeared. "I'd be glad to." They rode out the next morning. Josephine hadn't been on a horse in years, but Wade chose a gentle mare for her and stayed close as they traveled through rolling grass and scattered mesquite trees. "You doing all right?" he asked every few minutes. "Just fine," she replied, though her hands trembled a little on the reins. The land stretched endlessly under a blue sky. Josephine felt something loosen in her chest. Boston had never looked like this, never felt like possibility. "That ridge there marks my property line," Wade said, pointing as they rode toward a cluster of trees. As they crested the ridge, Josephine stopped short. The Broken Spur Ranch unfolded below them, wide and solid. A two-story house built of timber and stone, a porch wrapped around it like open arms. A barn, a bunkhouse, fenced grazing land with cattle moving slowly in the warm air. "It's beautiful," Josephine breathed. Wade looked almost embarrassed. "Built most of it myself." Daniel Cooper, one of his ranch hands, greeted them as Wade helped her down. "Welcome to the Broken Spur, ma'am," Daniel said, tipping his hat with an easy grin. Wade showed her the house room by room, the bookshelves, the stone fireplace, the study filled with ledgers he kept in careful order, the kitchen warm and lived in. Upstairs, the room that would be hers had a vase of wildflowers beside the bed. "My mother's furniture," Wade said quietly. "You can change anything you want." Josephine touched the carved dresser gently. It felt steady, like a home that wanted someone in it. Back downstairs, they took coffee on the porch overlooking the orchard. "I know this isn't the life you imagined," Wade said finally, "and I know I'm a stranger. But I want you to be more than a housekeeper or a name on paper. I want a partner." Josephine looked at him fully then, studying his worn hands, his earnest eyes, the quiet strength he carried without arrogance. "Then I have conditions," she said calmly. He blinked. "All right. If we marry, it must be a partnership. I help run the ranch, not just the house." "Agreed," Wade said immediately, "and a proper marriage would come in time, when we've truly come to know each other." Wade nodded slowly. "I wouldn't have it any other way. And if this proves wrong, if we cannot make a life together, you will help me establish myself elsewhere." "You have my word," Wade said, his voice steady, "and I'll put it in writing." Josephine hesitated only a heartbeat, weighing fear against hope. Then she extended her hand. "I accept your proposal." Wade's warm, calloused hand closed around hers. Relief and something deeper shone in his eyes. "I'll make sure you never regret it." The townsfolk buzzed for days when word spread that Wade Sullivan and Josephine Ali would marry. Mrs. Grayson helped mend and prepare Josephine's dress. The people of Redemption nodded approvingly when they passed. Everyone except Miranda Porter. She cornered Josephine in the general store 3 days before the wedding. "So you settled for the rancher," Miranda said with a smile sharp as broken glass. "How practical." Josephine gave a calm smile she didn't fully feel. "I consider myself fortunate." "You? A factory girl from Boston, mistress of a ranch?" Miranda scoffed. "Do you even know what that life requires?" "More honesty than your marriage," Josephine said quietly. Miranda's face flushed with anger. "You'll regret speaking to me that way." "I doubt it." Josephine left the store with her purchases and her dignity and ran straight into Wade outside. "You all right?" he asked, instantly alert. "She came to congratulate me." Wade snorted. "I'm sure she did." He looked at Josephine closely, then gently took the bags from her hands. "You don't deserve her trouble," he said. "You deserve a man who keeps his word." She held his gaze. "I believe I found one." The small church of Redemption was full on the day of their wedding. Josephine walked down the aisle in a pale blue dress that had been her mother's. Wade waited at the front, freshly shaven, nervous but steady. When he placed his mother's gold ring on her finger, his hands trembled slightly. "I'll take care of you," he whispered. "And I of you," she whispered back. After the ceremony, music and laughter filled the boarding house. Townspeople talked, danced, celebrated. Mrs. Grayson hugged Josephine like a daughter. Wade kept a protective but gentle hand near her at all times. Even Miranda and Edwin made a brief appearance. Miranda's smile was ice. "Such a charming little celebration," she said coolly. "I do hope ranch life suits you." "It already does," Josephine said calmly. Wade stepped closer, his voice steady but edged. "We'd love to have you out to the Broken Spur sometime, Mrs. Porter. It's much bigger than your father's place ever was." Miranda stiffened. Edwin swallowed hard. They left quickly. That evening, after farewells, Wade helped Josephine onto the wagon for the long ride home. The stars stretched wide above them, the prairie quiet and vast. "Ready to go home?" he asked softly. Josephine looked at him, at the land ahead, at the life she had never planned but now felt drawn toward. "Yes," she said quietly. "I'm ready." Their house glowed warm with lantern light when they arrived. But when Wade carried in her trunk and stood in the hallway with her, something heavy but gentle filled the air. "The blue bedroom is yours," he said quietly, "until you decide otherwise." Josephine nodded. "Thank you." He hesitated, then smiled a little. "Good night, Mrs. Sullivan." "Good night, Wade." Behind her closed door, Josephine pressed a hand to her heart. She was married, safe, respected. But her future with Wade Sullivan, whatever it would become, was only just beginning. What happens when a marriage that began as a practical choice slowly turns into something neither of them expected? Josephine asked herself that question each morning as she woke in the blue bedroom of the Broken Spur Ranch, sunlight warming the quilt Mrs. Hernandez had gifted her. Each day brought small changes. Quiet ones, important ones. Wade no longer knocked before calling her to breakfast. She no longer flinched when his hand brushed hers. They no longer spoke like strangers trying to solve a problem. Slowly, gently, they were becoming something real. Life on the ranch settled into a steady rhythm. Wade left before sunrise each morning, returning dusty and tired each evening. Josephine kept the house, learned the stoves, grew a garden, and organized the ranch accounts, with a skill that made Wade brag about her to anyone who would listen. "You should have seen the mess my books were in before she came," he told Daniel one afternoon. "Now I can actually understand them." But beneath the work and the routine lay something deeper, something neither of them dared name out loud. It came to a head one stormy afternoon. Rain pounded the ranch yard, turning the ground to thick mud. A loud crash outside made Josephine jump. Then the kitchen door flew open, and Wade stumbled in, soaked through, pale and holding his shoulder. "Wade!" Josephine hurried to him. "You're hurt!" "I'm fine," he said through clenched teeth. "Fence broke. A steer spooked. Threw me into the post." "You're not fine," Josephine said firmly. "Sit, now." Before he could argue, she fetched hot water, soap, towels, and a bottle of liniment. She found him standing awkwardly by the washroom door. "I can handle myself," he protested. "With one arm?" she countered. "Let me help." Quote. He hesitated long enough for pain to flash across his face. That was all the permission she needed. Josephine entered the washroom, steam rising from the tub where he sat, chest half submerged, skin bruised and scraped. She kept her eyes on the injury, not his bare shoulders, or the way the water slid down his chest. "My father had bad rheumatism," she said quietly, dipping a cloth into the warm water. "I used to help him bathe when it got too hard for him." Wade didn't reply. He just watched her with an expression she couldn't read, soft, almost grateful. When she finished washing his back and arm, she handed him a towel. "I'll let you finish the rest." "Josephine," he said softly before she turned away. "Thank you." That night, they sat by the fire. Rain tapped steadily against the windows as Josephine mended one of Wade's shirts. Wade watched her, his injured arm in a sling, his eyes heavy with unspoken words. "You're staring," she murmured. "I'm thinking," he replied. "About what?" "About us." Her needle stilled. The room grew warmer somehow. "Have you been unhappy here?" Wade asked quietly. "You haven't said a word about regret, but I need to hear it from you." Josephine set the shirt aside and looked at him fully. "No," she said. "I haven't regretted my decision, not once." Relief washed over his face. "I was afraid maybe you wanted the life Porter promised," he admitted. "Something easier." Josephine shook her head. "Porter promised comfort. You offered partnership. And kindness. I value that more." Wade's gaze deepened. "I care for you, Josephine," he said softly, "more than I ever planned to." Her heart beat fast. "I care for you too." Their hands met between their chairs. Gentle at first, then firmer. "Josephine," Wade whispered, voice rough, I want this marriage to become a real one, but only if you want it too." She took a steady breath. "I do." Wade reached for her then, pulling her gently into his arms. The kiss that followed wasn't rushed. It wasn't hungry. It was warm and steady, like the man himself. A promise. A beginning. That night, she didn't return to the blue bedroom, and Wade didn't sleep alone. Weeks passed, warm and sweet, filled with laughter at breakfast, brushing horses together, quiet talks under the oak tree, and kisses stolen in the barn when no one was looking. Then one morning, Josephine woke feeling dizzy and faint. Mrs. Hernandez watched her with knowing eyes. "When was your last monthly cycle, dear?" the older woman asked gently. Josephine's breath caught. The answer hit her like sunlight breaking through clouds. By the time the doctor confirmed it, her hands trembled with joy and disbelief. She was carrying Wade's child. Wade came home late that evening, dust on his boots, tired from a long day. Josephine waited in the warm kitchen, nerves fluttering. When he stepped inside, she walked up to him with a soft smile. "There will be a change at the Broken Spur come spring," she said, guiding his hand to her stomach. He froze. His eyes widened. "Josephine, you mean?" She nodded, suddenly emotional. "We're going to have a baby." Wade's breath shook as he pulled her into his arms. He buried his face in her hair. "A baby?" he whispered. "Our baby." When he drew back, tears shone in his eyes. "I never thought I'd have a family of my own," he said. "Thank you for this. For everything." Their home grew even warmer after that. Wade became fiercely protective. Mrs. Hernandez scolded him daily for fussing too much, but Josephine loved it. Loved him. When the baby finally came, a small, rosy boy with Wade's blue eyes, the whole ranch celebrated. Wade held his son like he held something sacred. They named him William Joseph Sullivan. Months later, Josephine stood under the big oak tree, watching Wade lift little Will into the air, both father and son laughing under the Texas sun. Life wasn't what she planned. It was better. She had been abandoned by the man she came to marry. Rejected, replaced. But the cowboy who stepped forward that day, the one who said, "Then she's free to choose me," had given her a home, a husband, a child, and a love deeper than anything she dreamed of back in Boston. Wade came over, baby Will in his arms, and kissed her forehead. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Sullivan?" She smiled softly. "I'm thinking I chose right." And as the wind rustled the grass and their son giggled between them, Josephine knew with her whole heart that she had.